The world held its breath as a fragile ceasefire settled over the Middle East after 12 days of brutal conflict between Iran and Israel. But just as diplomatic efforts intensified, a bombshell dropped. From the heart of Tehran, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has emerged from a week of relative silence, not with a message of de-escalation, but with a defiant and chilling declaration: victory. This isn't just a statement, it's a gauntlet thrown down, a direct challenge to the United States and a claim that promises to reshape the geopolitical landscape. What does Khamenei's brazen assertion mean for a region already on edge? And how will the U.S., still reeling from the recent strikes on Iran, respond to this audacious claim of triumph? Ayatollah Khamenei's return to public address was meticulously orchestrated, a powerful display of resilience designed to project strength after a period where his location and even well-being were subject to intense speculation. His speech, delivered with characteristic fervor, framed the recent conflict as a resounding strategic success for Iran. He vehemently dismissed the impact of the targeted U.S. airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, asserting that the American efforts to cripple Tehran's atomic program had ultimately failed. "They sought to break our will, to dismantle our capabilities," Khamenei declared, his voice echoing across state media. But the Islamic Republic has delivered a severe slap to America's face, proving our might and resolve. He went on to argue that the U.S. intervention, ostensibly aimed at protecting Israel, had instead exposed American weakness and strategic miscalculation. According to Khamenei, the conflict served only to solidify Iran's regional influence and demonstrate its capacity to withstand immense external pressure. This narrative of victory, however, stands in stark contrast to independent assessments. While the full extent of the damage from U.S. bunker-buster bombs and precision cruise missiles remains officially undisclosed, the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, had previously indicated very considerable damage to at least two key Iranian nuclear sites, including the heavily fortified Fordow fuel enrichment plant. Yet, Khamenei's address painted a picture of an unbowed and victorious Iran. The response from Washington was swift and unequivocal. U.S. President Donald Trump, currently attending the NATO summit in The Hague, condemned Khamenei's statements as irresponsible and provocative. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo reiterated the U.S. position, stating that Iran's rhetoric changes nothing. "Our message is clear. Any future aggression will be met with decisive force. The damage to their nuclear program is real, and the path forward is diplomacy, not bellicose declarations." Pentagon officials, speaking anonymously, indicated that while the immediate military objectives of the strikes had been met, primarily to set back Iran's nuclear weapon development timeline, the long-term impact on Iranian defiance remained to be seen. The core challenge for the U.S. now is navigating this delicate post-ceasefire period. How do you engage in de-escalation talks when one side is declaring victory and the other maintains its military superiority? The U.S., alongside its allies, is pushing for renewed nuclear talks, but Khamenei's pronouncements make such negotiations infinitely more complex. The credibility of a future nuclear deal, or even the immediate stability of the ceasefire, hangs precariously in the balance. Khamenei's victory declaration sends shockwaves across the Middle East, impacting every regional player. For Iran's proxies like Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and various militias in Iraq and Syria, this is a clear signal to double down on their anti-Western and anti-Israeli stance. It emboldens them, potentially leading to a new wave of regional destabilization despite the current ceasefire. For Israel, Khamenei's words are a bitter pill, confirming their deep-seated fears about Iran's enduring capabilities and intentions. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office has remained tight-lipped, but security analysts in Tel Aviv are already debating the implications for Israel's long-term defense strategy. Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states, historically wary of both Iranian expansionism and U.S. disengagement, are now caught in an even more precarious position. Will they seek closer ties with the U.S. for protection, or explore new avenues of dialogue with a seemingly emboldened Iran? The geopolitical chessboard of the Middle East has never been more volatile, with allegiances being tested and the specter of renewed conflict constantly lurking. Beyond the immediate conflict, Khamenei's speech casts a long shadow over the future of international efforts to contain Iran's nuclear program. Before the recent escalation, there were whispers of a renewed effort to revive some form of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, or a new, broader nuclear agreement. Now, with Iran claiming victory and dismissing the efficacy of military strikes, their incentive to negotiate appears significantly diminished. The core question remains: will Iran use this perceived victory as leverage to demand more concessions in any future talks, or will they simply accelerate their nuclear program, viewing international pressure as ineffective? Experts warn that if Iran believes it can weather military pressure and still advance its nuclear ambitions, the world could be on the cusp of a renewed nuclear crisis, far more severe than previous iterations. The International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, faces an immense challenge in monitoring Iran's activities and verifying its claims, especially if access to damaged sites is restricted or denied. Dr. Fatima Zahra, a leading Middle East analyst, commented on the situation. Khamenei's declaration is a shrewd psychological move. It's designed for both domestic consumption, consolidating power, and international signaling, portraying Iran as an unyielding force. Whether it reflects reality on the ground is debatable, but its impact on perception is undeniable. Social media across the globe is ablaze with reactions, a mix of condemnation, concern, and fervent support depending on the geopolitical leanings of the users. Iranian state media is, predictably, amplifying Khamenei's message, while Western news outlets are dissecting every word for clues about future intentions. The public is hungry for answers. Is this the end of the crisis, or just the beginning of a new, more dangerous chapter? The emotional stakes are incredibly high, as millions in the region live under the constant threat of renewed hostilities. The coming days will be critical. Will the US and its allies maintain a unified front, or will internal disagreements emerge? Will Iran's victory declaration embolden them to test the limits of the ceasefire? And crucially, will the international community find a way to bring Tehran back to the negotiating table before the nuclear clock ticks too far? The Middle East, once again, stands at a precipice, and the world watches to see if diplomacy can triumph over the echoes of declared victory and simmering animosities. Please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated with the latest breaking stories.